Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of Leadership Ready Room Chats. I'm Brandon Jenks Jenkins here with Tom Brother Murray, and we're excited to get to this week's leader development topic. Again, it stemmed from a conversation that Tom and I had yesterday that really just energized us. And if I were to sum it up, the theme is probably something like when you are transitioning into a new leadership role or moving from where you were predominantly expected to be the expert and have all the answers into a new role where now you are leading the team of experts, your job becomes less operating inside the environment and more kind of how you are helping to shape that environment, to design the space so that you and your team can all thrive, unlock their potential. They can be the experts that they need to be. Uh, I could go on, but that was really energizing us yesterday, Tom. What's coming up for you right now?
I mean, it touches a few different parts of my life, Brandon. Things I used to do in the Navy, things I'm doing today in different businesses. And man, it's easy to stick with what you know, right? I used to be last year, last month, last job, I was really good at making widgets. And now I'm running a widget making company. Well, it's very comfortable to go back to just making widgets, but your company probably doesn't need you doing that. The company needs you to leverage your knowledge from making widgets to design a better widget making company, right? And I think I've gotten stuck in that trap. I got stuck in that trap when I was in the Navy, and certainly post Navy as well. And it's a great reminder. I enjoyed our conversation yesterday, particularly around how it landed with me, that I need to be better at challenging myself to stop making widgets. uh, and there's a time and a place for it. Please, if you're listening, don't mistake this as when you promote, you no longer do the thing. That would be foolish for us to say. We don't feel that way or mean that from a black and white perspective, right? This isn't binary. And I think of it more as like a rheostat if done correctly. As you promote, as you wind up in positions of greater leadership, well, you should be spending less time operating, executing, and more time helping build the right culture, helping set the right cadence, helping, maybe the word battle rhythm means something to you, setting the battle rhythm for your team, for your organization, and allowing the organization to then thrive once you've set the conditions for it. So no, Brandon, this is so top of mind for me, and it's hard to get it right, at least on the first swing. So I'm enjoying iterating. Um, I'm enjoying iterating and slowly putting this stuff into practice. Why? I'll flip it back to you. Why do you think this is so hard? I think I used the word comfortable, right? Making widgets, executing is comfortable. What else do you have on that? Why do you think it's hard to make this transition?
Mm. You likely are being promoted or you were given this opportunity to now start leading a team due to your expertise or how great you were in your previous roles. That might not be the only reason. Hopefully leadership saw in you the potential to be a leader at maybe a different level, a higher level. However, it absolutely goes into the calculus. Your performance in previous roles goes into the calculus. And so what made you so great in those prior roles? Part of that was your expertise. If you're in a helicopter pilot, if you're in a helicopter squadron, you're a helicopter pilot, then most likely if you're promoting to higher levels of leadership, at some point, you were probably one of the more proficient pilots in the command. You did really well at that job. And maybe not only flying, but you did really well at mission execution, planning missions, executing mission, right? You were the doer and you did really well at that. And so then you start to get more opportunities. And so part of the problem, I think, why it's so hard for experts to make this shift is that expertise is exactly what got them there. And so that's kind of like a man, it's like you're looking through this lens of expertise and it got you to where you're at, and all of a sudden now you're supposed to not look through that lens. All of a sudden you're not supposed to be the expert. And I think to Tom's point, we're not saying that you just completely dump all of that and you're no longer an expert. What we're saying is at this level, you are now expected to help your other teammates, the other experts. You know, maybe now we became commanding officers. All of a sudden we had 40 pilots and air crew, right? 40 pilots, maybe 20, 30 air crew. I mean, all of them are all either experts or, right, different levels within the command there, developing, but they're all developing. They're trying to master their craft of being excellent pilots, excellent tacticians. In your organization, you're in real estate, you have a brokerage, right? So you eventually, you're probably going to have some real estate agents in the brokerage. And I'm not talking about you specifically, Tom, although you do have a brokerage. I'm just trying to relate this, outside the military. It's like when I have a brokerage and I have, say, 15, 20 agents working for me, okay, my role is probably no longer to be out there to be the agent who is closing the most deals, listing the most houses myself, right? We want to develop the other agents on the team so that as a company, as an organization, as a brokerage, now this brokerage is operating with excellence at a different level. Why? Because somebody there is helping to shape an environment where all these agents are thriving versus me just continuing to be the best agent. I'll pause there for a second, brother, see if anything came up for you.
Yeah, I love it, and thanks for the real estate brokerage example. Something else that came up for me about why this may be hard, maybe why it's hard for me actually. At the execution level, at the operator level, right? Whatever that hierarchy might look like, or what that level might look like in your organization, executors tend to get pretty immediate feedback. Either you made the widget right or you didn't. Either the real estate transaction was successful or it wasn't. The timelines for success, to measure success, are generally relatively compact, and that's great. The immediate wins, they feel good, they fuel you. They're a super important part of whatever business you're in. What we're talking about, though, leveling up, leading a team, however big the team might be, as we start to talk about what that means about building systems, creating a culture, you don't necessarily get immediate feedback. Some of these things that you would be implementing take the cycles for them to mature are much longer. And it takes a special kind of patience to sit with maybe some uncertainty, to sit with not knowing if the actions you've taken are going to bear fruit or if they're going to be successful. And there's some ambiguity there, and a very different pace. And that can feel, I don't know, heavy. It can feel daunting. And, that's where leaders have to mature and kind of sit with that and be confident in what they've done and seek feedback along the way so that they can iterate. So yeah, I think the time bounds are very different. I'll flip
Yeah.
it back to you.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, brother. So it kind of leads me then to the next kind of phase of this discussion, maybe, which is what does that even mean? What is designing the space or shaping the environment? Like, okay, I'm a new leader, and I believe that that is a big part of my job now, not simply being the expert. What the heck does that mean? Like, shaping the environment. Like, what's one thing that could help a leader shape the environment?
The first thing that comes to mind for me, Brandon, is back to my days of flying, and um, I had learned along the way. You were talking about mission planning a few minutes ago. I had learned along the way that, and I believe deeply that robust mission planning for every mission resulted in much higher chances for success in mission execution. It sounds so easy to say standing here, but like any job, even flying helicopters can become mundane. And at some point in my career, I started to observe that everybody, myself included, wasn't putting the same attention to detail in the mission planning process for the routine flights, the mundane flights. And we changed it. We started saying, no, we're gonna mission plan for everything. We're gonna take all this is super serious work. We're going to treat it with the seriousness it deserves. Well, when I got into a position of leadership, I was able to take that approach, which had largely just been a my approach, and I was able to build a culture where the whole squadron, all of those 30 or 40 pilots you were talking about, treated mission planning the same way. And so that's obviously it's a very specific example, but that's for me one way that we were able to start setting the culture. We were able to, yeah, it might feel like a rule being imposed or a process being put in place, and that's your job as the boss to put those processes in place to help the team succeed. And man, did it work! It worked in spades. Uh, and yeah, we iterated. Not all of the initial details of the plan were actually put into play. Some of them were tweaked, some of them were removed, and others were added. But man, over the course of probably 12 to 18 months, we went from having no formal process to being super dialed in, and the results carried on for many years. In fact, uh, they're still going today, 5 or so years after we put them in place.
Mm, that's a good sign. A sign of a strong foundation that was put in place, man. When you can
Yeah,
look back.
and I think you could apply similar approaches to, again, to the real estate brokerage, to whatever your business is. You probably learned some tips and tricks along the way that helped you be successful, that helped you earn, to your other point, that helped you earn that promotion, that level up. Well, then how do you translate that to broader success for the whole team? That's now your job. I think that's what I think of when we're talking about setting the conditions.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I'll flip it back to you. What do you think it looks like?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I feel everything you just said resonated with me. What's coming out with to me strongest right now when I think of shaping the environment is it a place, an environment, a climate where your teammates feel like they can highlight both good and bad. And why is that important? That's important for a number of reasons. One, you'll see as you become a leader of a larger and larger team, you realize that not only can I not focus all my time just trying to be this expert anymore, but I need to figure out a way to get a handle or situational awareness about what's going on with the organization as a whole. What's the health of the organization as a whole? What direction is this entire team moving compared to the direction it should be moving based on what's our vision, where do we want to end up? And in order for you as a leader to actually be able to have good situational awareness, there has to be an environment where everyone on the team, or as many as possible, right? Ideal world, everyone. reality, maybe not, where as many as possible on your team are highlighting the good and the bad. Okay. In my experience, in order to have teammates who are willing to tell you the bad, the ugly, where our processes are broken, where we're in the red, where if we don't change something, this part of the business is going to crash, or we're going to go bankrupt, or if in aviation, someone's going to die. Um, in order to have a team where your teammates are willing to do that, that is a special kind of environment. Okay, it's an environment where people feel safe, and I'll boil it down to kind of the one thing that's resonating with me right now. And there's a number of different things, but the one thing popping into my head right now is how the leader handles feedback, how the leader handles that first piece of news that is the red, that is something's broken, that is the emperor has no clothes on. Like, thank God somebody had the courage to say something. And now the most important thing is, like, how are you handling that feedback? Right?
Yeah, you're talking about psychological safety.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. And that is the critical moment, like how you handle those things. Like, to me, that's the critical moment when it shifts from, oh yeah, look at these core values. Honor, courage, commitment, Navy core values, right? Or I have my own values, team, humility, and growth mindset. But those were just on a piece of paper on the wall until we actually start demonstrating those values in real life. And one of your first opportunities is going to be how you handle feedback and news, bad news, especially from your teammates. I'll pause there for a second, Tom.
Oh, I think setting that part of the environment very early on, regardless of what other process you want to put in place, whatever system you want to build or break or update, what you just hit on has to be at the core of it all. And I'm not suggesting that every bit of feedback you take, you implement or you execute on. No, 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 not at all. There's a lot of bad ideas that are going to come your way. People though they do need the space to be able to speak up without fear of reprisal, without fear of knowing that they will be heard. Right? Sometimes people just need to be heard. I think another part of it is predictability, whether that's a cadence or a battle rhythm, like I was talking about earlier, or simply predictability in the way leadership will react, which is tied back into psychological safety. Is there a routine mechanism to coordinate things, to communicate, to give and receive feedback? Is there a steadiness to the pace of operations, which, hey, sometimes is out of your control as the leader? But when it does show up, when cadence is interrupted by outside forces, how does the leader react? Right? Uh, and look, we've said this before, probably a few times. Your mood, the way you show up, the way you emote in front of your team matters. And I'm not suggesting that you need to be the most tight-lipped, no expression person. Uh, Just know when you're sad or angry, your team will know it. And it's a barometer for everybody. So understanding that is important as a leader. How you walk through your office. People notice, and people react to it. I think as you make these transitions from operator or executor to leader, one of the traps is holding on to your way when you were the best operator. And one of the challenges that I've felt, that I've faced, is understanding the difference between my way and other good ways that achieve the same outcome, right? The methods can and should vary, And we would all do well to learn other methods, to learn other people's approach to problems, even if we were really good at solving those same problems. And that's a trap I found myself in, right? Nope. Brandon's way is different than mine, and it's still safe. It still gets us where we need to go. Who am I to tell him to do it differently, right? We should be focused, in most cases, on the outcome, uh, assuming we're getting there along some using appropriate methods, right? It still has to be legal. It still has to be cost wise, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that bringing up for you?
Well, that does a number of things, right? Like, and I'm sure I won't get everything, but a couple things that brings up for me is one, it frees you up. You can let them do their job, whatever that may be. And if their approach is different than yours and it still accomplishes what we need to accomplish, great. They can do that. And then you can go, there's a million other things that probably deserve your attention at some point. And if you're trying to do everybody's job because you've done it before and you think that you can do it the best, you're not going to have any time to do the other things that nobody else is looking at. Okay. So that's one thing. The other thing that comes up for me is by doing that, you're empowering your teammates. You are shaping an environment where each person knows their responsibilities in their job and knows that they're empowered to do their job, and that you're not going to come in and every time they try to do something, you're not going to come in and squash it and say, no, we're going to do it my way. Okay. I'm not saying there's never a time when, as the leader, you may want to do something your way. We're not saying that. What we're saying is be judicious with that and recognize when, like, okay, this is what we have to do and why. Be prepared to explain that. And then I challenge you, for the most part, to, if somebody on your team has a job to do, help coach them through it if they need coaching, but let them own it. That's empowering to them. It frees you up to do what yours should be doing, what you're uniquely meant to be doing in the command, in the squadron, in the brokerage, and they can focus on what they're supposed to be doing within that command. And so that builds them. They're empowered. They have buy-in, right? All this is shaping now an environment where everybody feels like their voice matters. All right. Which then feeds into, now they're going to speak up because they know their voice matters. It's all connected, right? This is pretty complex. And so, take what we say, this is from our experience, but there's a million other angles to look at this too, right? It's very complex because you're dealing with humans and the decisions that humans are making and the interpersonal relationships involved. And so it all connects, I guess, is the point there. It all connects. Yeah. Anything else? Like, what happens to an environment, to a team, when the leader's not, and nobody is really stepping up to the balcony and looking at the overall environment and seeing how it's shaping? What happens?
That is an accidental great segue into what I was hoping we would talk about, which is prioritization and ambiguity. So that's my answer. Things become ambiguous, priorities become unclear, and the organization is not aligned. You have people that aren't rowing in the same direction. You have people that are doing their best, of course, to interpret whatever guidance might be out there. And if it's not a well formulated plan that has the team's energy focused on the right things at the right time, the organization ultimately is less effective. Whatever you're using to measure the organization's effectiveness, it's going down. And it may not be overnight, but in time, there will be a noticeable degradation. And so, if you as the leader find yourself saying, well, shoot, I can't, I know I'm not supposed to be out there just all day, every day being the operator. What should I be doing? I would challenge you to think about the environment, the workflows, and the day-to-day from your team's perspective. Do you think they have clarity around what the most important thing is today or this week, do you think they would all answer, if you were to pose the question, what are our organization's priorities? What are my priorities as your leader? If you don't think that everybody in the organization knows those things, and especially the next echelon of leaders below you, if you don't think that they know the priorities and can articulate them, that's a problem. And so it's on you as the leader to fix that, to remove ambiguity, to set priorities. Because look, there's so much noise thrown at us, from the phones in our hands to the computers on our desks to the many outside entities, regardless of your sector. Everybody's got regulatory bodies overseeing them, throwing requirements at them, inspections of different kinds, and annual reviews, and on and on and on. That in almost every industry, if you focused on simply trying to meet all of those requirements, you would be mission ineffective. And so you as the leader need to clarify those ambiguities, set priorities, and keep everybody moving in the same direction. So that's thanks for the segue there, Brandon. I think that's how I'll wrap my comments.
Yeah, dude, I love that. If you have always been the expert and now you're the leader and you're continuing to just be down in the weeds in your comfort zone, being the best real estate agent, being the best coder on the team, being the best tactically proficient pilot, and that's all you're doing, who else is looking out for what Tom was just talking about? Who is doing that? And in an environment where everybody on the team is like, well, Jinx ain't doing it because Jinx is out there flying all the hours. A lot of things could happen there. There's a vacuum. You could somebody else might step up and try to fill that role, and it could be inappropriate, right? And they may start taking it in a direction where maybe they shouldn't. That's one thing that could happen. Another thing is no one steps in. And so all these things just start to get missed. And, individuals in your organization are scrambling, trying to meet these requirements because, they have calendars. So they still pop up on the calendar and they're like, oh, wow, they're surprised, or everybody just always seems to be behind the eight ball because the leader is not stepping up on the balcony again so that the leader can take a look and say, all right, here's the big picture. Here's where we need to get to. Here's why this over here is a little bit more important right now than that inspection that's a month later or 2 months later or whatever. If nobody's doing that, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. And not just on the team, you're probably going to hit a point too as a leader where your personal well-being is just tanking because you're going to start to feel that pressure because likely you have a boss. So, right, we're not really talking about, you're probably not the CEO of a huge company or, the highest level of leadership in the military at this point, right? Maybe you are. But so you're going to have bosses who are wondering what's going on too. You're going to start to feel the crunch, the pressure, the stress, the anxiety, and things will just be snowballing downhill. So, man, 30 minutes is gone. Brother, do you have anything else before we wrap it today?
Nah, take us home.
Man, if you're out there as a leader listening to this, first of all, thank you. Thank you for tuning in, whether it's live or you're watching this recording after the fact. Thank you. If this resonated with you, please reach out to me, reach out to Tom. If you want to go ahead and take a look at leadershiprr.com, website link is at the bottom of the video there. If this resonated with you as a leader, you're exactly who we would love to continue the conversation with. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. And we do these almost every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. And so until next episode, have a great week. We'll see you then.